Hello and
Hello
welcome, and
and
thanks for
thanks
joining
for
us
joining
on
us
this
on this
Monday
Monday
morning.
morning.
I
I
apologize for
apologize for
echoing.
echoing.
I am
I
the
am the
OGM, and
OGM,
I
and
am
I
very
am very
flattered to be
flattered to be
joined
joined
by
by
Dave
Dave
Scott
Scott
of
of
Evil
Evil
Genius
Genius
Games to
Games.
talk
Talk
about the
about the
past,
past,
present,
present,
and
and
future
future
of
of
Evil
Evil
Genius
Genius
Games.
Games.
So
So
let's
let's
start with
start with
the
the
icebreaker.
icebreaker.
Who are
Who
you,
are
and
you, and
how did
how
you
did you
start
start
role
role
playing?
playing?
All right. Hey, OGGM. This is Dave Scott. I'm the owner of Evil Genius Games. Man, good question, because I've actually been interviewing a lot of our customers and asking the exact same question. And so it's caused me to think about it as well. So I think I was like sixth grade. I was like 11 years old, and I went away to sleepaway camp, and they were playing D&D, and they were playing very specifically Return to White Plume Mountain. And I remember the Griffin in it and going like, this is the most awesome thing I have ever seen in my entire life. And then when I came back, my buddy Paul had already bought the book as well. And then we just started nerding out and playing D&D. Redbox, by the way.
Cool.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay.
So
So
Evil
Evil
Genius
Genius
Games.
Games.
Let's
Let's
talk for
talk for
the
the
birthing
birthing
thing.
thing.
How did
How
that
did
get
that get
formed?
formed?
And then,
And
of
then, of
course,
course,
how to get
like
right
right
into
into
everyday hero.
here.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously I've been playing tabletop role-playing games since I was 11 years old. And I don't know about you, Mike, but I loved modern a lot. Like like Star Frontiers, I really loved. Boot Hill, I really dug. And then like D20 Modern came out, and then Spycraft, love those. And then I was always a Champions player. Did you ever play Champions?
Uh,
Uh,
as
as
every
every
fan of
fan
my
of my
channel
channel
knows,
knows,
Heroes is
Heroes
my
is my
number one
number one
genre. So
genre. So
yeah,
yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. So I was
yeah,
a
Champions. Yeah.
huge Champions fan. Like I loved everything about it. The rolling of the six-sided dice, the whole nine. So I was always a modern guy. And then when D20 Modern came out in 2002, I was super into that. And I
Yeah.
switched over to that system. And I remember playing this really cool game where like everybody was like a mundane hero. So like you were like a policeman or like a fireman or whatever. And I ran that campaign for a couple years. And then do you remember that movie Sliders?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my God, one of my favorite TV series of all time. So then I did this whole thing where everyone had to make their own themselves as characters, and then they slid into separate dimensions and did all sorts of wacky and fun stuff. So I always kind of dug that. But I was never actually like in the actual industry. I just was a huge fanboy. Like I've been going to Gen Con since it was in Milwaukee, and I want to say that I'm the fourth or fifth person to become a VIG at Gen Con. So like I was like one of the early people that joined the VIG program there. So I was always a huge fan. It was always like my show. And so I always loved the industry from that perspective. And then how we got started was I was actually working at Amazon at the time, and so was Jeff Grubb. And if you know who Jeff Grubb is,
Yes.
TSR, Wizards of the Coast, Spelljammer. And he was developing content for Amazon Gaming Studios. And I found out that he worked there. So I reached out to him. I'm like, Mr. Grubb, I'm a huge fan of yours. Can I buy you a beer sometime? And Jeff was like, I never turned down a free beer. So we actually pulled off in this really cool pizza restaurant on the corner of 4th and Olive. And we hung out and talked about D20 Modern. And because he was one of the 4 people that started D20 Modern. And it was a really interesting conversation because he was talking a lot about 2 things that struck out in that conversation in particular. One was about all the things he'd do differently 20 years later, sort of now that he has hindsight, right? Like,
Yes. Exactly.
I'd probably do the chase system differently. I'd probably do the wealth system differently, blah, blah, blah. But then what was really fun about our conversations was he started talking about how important the genre was, and and all the different norms that were broken when D20 Modern came out, right? Like the whole concept around these archetypes and really building around that. Even all the way down to the cover of the actual book. If you're familiar with it, it was written by it was drawn by this really, really amazing comic book artist. And he did this thing where there were 3 different um, heroes on the front of that book. Yeah, it's very similar to ours, but like the OG version of it. And that became sort of like a standard for covers for like a decade later. Like, and we were just talking about that. It was like crazy. And so we started talking about 5th edition, and then where I was like, like a lot of the issues that you were solving or you wish you would solve with 3.5 got solved in 5th edition. Jeff, we should reboot this game. And Jeff's first response was, no, thank you. And then I just kept hammering him. Eventually he said yes. And then that's how the company was born. I finally convinced Jeff to help me build this game. He helped recruit all the engineers, all the game designers for it. And then we were off to the races with Everyday Heroes.
Cool. I was really excited to see it, but unfortunately, it's out of my price at the time.
Ah, darn it.
And I knew that
we'll have to send you a copy so you can do your own independent review of the game.
Oh, please do. I will never turn down. I will always gladly sell out. So now the most exciting thing for Everyday Heroes for me and for everybody, I think, who are a fan of it, is the amazing collection of intellectual properties you're able to get your hands on. I again apologize for the echo. I don't know what's going on. But you got Highlander. And
yeah,
we
met
the Highlander guys several years ago. So I actually have one of the trench coats from Highlander.
I love it.
Rambo, Universal Soldier, Total Recall, Kong, Escape from New York Hero, and my personal favorite, Pacific Rim. And I'm just waiting for Godzilla. How did this happen? How do you get such amazing IPs?
Yeah, I mean, so it's a funny story. So obviously I'm a huge fan of D20 Modern, and one of the most amazing aspects of D20 Modern was how much support material was around it, right? So it wasn't just D20 Modern, but it was like D20 Modern, it was D20 Future, D20 Noir. They did like all these different splat books that really focused around different modern genres. And so as we started to sort of vision about like what could we do with this platform, the system that we were creating, we always knew that we would always want to encourage other supplements, right? And we could actually, we could actually create a generic robot book or create a generic zombie book if we wanted to. A Sliders adventure book. Yes, please. But like my whole theory behind it was like, why do that if we can just go and find a movie that really helped build out, the whole concept that we wanted to go after. And I had a couple relationships in Hollywood. So I started to actually ask around and go, hey, listen, like, what's going on with this IP? Could we do anything with it potentially? Blah, blah, blah. And initially they were like, what is a TTRPG anyway? And people thought I was crazy. And it took about a year before I can convince anyone to actually take me seriously about bringing some of these online. Like the Highlander guy, I remember having a conversation with the Highlander guy. And by the way, there's a guy who's an expert in Highlander who is the gatekeeper for all the Highlander IP. I actually had to play D&D with him to show him how this game would play. And it was absolutely eye-opening for him to actually do it. So that's how it came about. Like, we had hoped to get 4 of these done. We got 8 deals done. We could have gotten 20 done. I wish we had only done 4 because it was a real rush to get all 8 of them out. But I'm pretty happy with the results. I mean, I think that if you take a look at Drive-Thru, a lot of really good 5-star reviews. So people seem to like the product and they seem to like the quality of it. And that just makes me really proud.
Yeah. I mean, they're all very exciting. The possibility of running interconnected is there. Rambo and Highlander, Kong and Pacific Rim. The idea of interconnected, or are they all separate?
Yeah, it really was. I mean, one of the objectives that we really wanted to do here was to make sure that they were all interoperable. So that means that the crow could go into the Universal Soldier world and jack some people up. You could take a Highlander because they live forever and put him in a Jaeger. Why not? And so the idea all along was that everything we did was interoperable, and to sort of put a score on that, and really double click on it, we also made the vault. And all the vault is this all the mechanics that we built into these different games, and we filed off the serial numbers and then reproduced them into a perfect companion of game. So if you wanted to play a Reborn, for example, that's basically a crow. You could, and it's just not called the Reborn. Just not called the crow. It's called the Reborn. Or Total Recall, which is one of my favorite games, is really focused primarily on um, mutations. So I was a huge Mutant and Masterminds fan back in the day. And so yeah, you could actually get mutations where you get like rubber bones or a third limb. And so we stripped out all the Total Recall stuff of it, and now you can actually add mutations into your Everyday Heroes game. But more importantly, since we're pretty much 5e compatible, you could actually add mutations into any 5e game. And it works. And we got a lot of our customers which have sort of done that already.
Do you still have a relationship with any of the people's IPs? Are you still talking to them?
Oh yeah, absolutely. In fact, it was really fun working with the folks over at Crow because when we first got the license, we were like, God, how are we going to do this, right? Like an average party's 4 to 6 players. If only one person plays the crow and everyone else plays like policemen.
How do you run a crow campaign when there's only one crow?
Right. So that's gonna be horrible. So go ahead.
I haven't had a chance to read it, but there was a short-lived crow TV show. Were you able to grab on that too?
Yeah, what's funny is not only was there a short-lived Crow TV show, but then there's also several movies. And our lead designer, Goober Ramsley, who led this project, was like, I'm just not going to acknowledge that the other movies or the TV show ever existed. I'm just going to focus on the first 2 movies. So that's what we decided to do with those. But in order to solve that problem of there being one crow, Goober came out with this brilliant idea to actually create a pantheon of death spirits. So yes, there's the crow, and the crow has a specific reason for bringing you back. But then also there's the mastiff, the cat, the spider, the moth, the butterfly, and every single one of them has a different reason for bringing you back. Like one might be for revenge, the other one might be to protect loved ones. And we presented this to the producers and the owners of the Crow license, and the guy was speechless, and he was like, "This is incredible." And then a couple weeks later, he actually asked to play the game. So we actually played the game with him. And then a couple months ago, he reached out and said, "Do I have your permission to create a comic book series based off of your concepts of this game?" Ooh. So now they're developing a comic book series based off of this pantheon, this idea of this pantheon of crow-like reborn.
Ooh, cool. Potential action figure.
Yeah, I love it. Yes, please, action figures galore.
So now that we've got to the top of the roller coaster, we obviously have to brush over the biggest IP that you almost had, and that's of course Rebel Moon. Both the version and the expanded version. And you had Rebel Moon, sadly we lost Rebel Moon. I know you can't talk a lot about Rebel Moon because it's still in limbo, but who approached you?
Yeah, so so listen, we've been talking to every single studio for a very long time, trying to convince them that the TTRPGs is a great space for them to extend their IP. And no surprise to you, probably, I was a huge fan of the concept of getting a little known Netflix movie with Will Smith in as an IP. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Independence Day or After Earth.
Oh, both of those would be really good. Both of them would be really good. No, this is one where called Bright, where he plays
Bright,
a police officer with an
Shadowrun
friend. Yeah, Shadowrun. So I was like, okay, that would be the ultimate, right? So
Yeah,
I talked to them.
They were talking about doing more with Bright, and then nothing went anywhere.
Yeah, so it turned out that that there were some issues with the creator, unfortunately, which I'm sure you can Google. So we've been talking to them forever about Bright and seeing if we can get that. And they came back and they go, we have this project we think is interesting. And I was like, do tell. And then we had this amazing opportunity to actually work directly with Zack Snyder on his vision for Rebel Moon. And I don't know if you're familiar at all with sort of Bill Slavicsek and his experience with Star Wars, but we actually were felt very privileged to be working with them, primarily because I would actually say that Bill Slavicsek had a lot to do with why Star Wars was such a successful brand, because in building out the role-playing game, he had to actually work with George Lucas to build out the IP, to build out the world.
Oh yeah, so you have the Star Wars extended universe without Bill and the Star Wars role-playing game, the original one.
Exactly, 100%.
The two fed off each other so well. It sucks, Disney.
Yeah, and so Zach got that, and he came in with the approach of like, I'm just telling one story in this universe, but we need your help to tell more of the story. So we did that. We built out the game. Unfortunately, and you could read it in the papers that we had to part ways. But we parted ways only after we had developed a 1,000-page world Bible, and 2 role-playing books, a game master's guide and a player's guide in full. So we asked them whether or not we could keep the material. They said yes, and so we've now rebranded that Intergalactic Heroes.
Cool. Tell us about Intergalactic Heroes.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. So I don't know if you know who Brian C.P. Steele is. Brian C.P. Steele is a prolific game designer, mostly known for Shadowrun, doing a lot of Shadowrun stuff, but also was part of the team that developed Essence 20 system, and was a heavy contributor to G.I. Joe, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and the Transformers TTRPGs by Renegade Games. Yeah. Well, yeah. So you could thank Brian for that. He did a lot of work on that with that fantastic team. And now he leads this project, and it is so much fun. So imagine a world, it's a bit of a space fantasy world. So imagine a world where the universe is run by a queen, and then the queen gets murdered. And so the factions, all the different power factions of the world are actually sort of vying for power. And the protectors of the queen, who this faction that was meant to protect the throne, wants no one on the throne because it's not in their best interest. So it creates a really, really fantastic sort of like tug of war between the various factions, because everyone has their own special and specific motivation tied to it. And there's a couple of really cool concepts. One concept is, if you have a space fantasy, you got to have something like the Force, which is sort of this energy that flows without everybody. And we call it the tide. And the way that the tide works is that every single day, you roll for the tide, and the tide can affect gameplay. So it could give you inspiration. It could make you lose inspiration. But then not only that, but there are people who can wield the tide. And there's this beautiful dance between 2 of the different classes that we have, where one of the classes, called the Harmonist, believes the tide is a living thing, and wants to, very, very importantly, work with the tide and treat it with respect and live in harmony with the tide and be blessed by its favor. And then we have another faction which believes it's just a tool. And they actually think it's something that can be used and bent to their will. And so that's a really, really fun play that we have there. But then in addition to that, we have 8 alien races, which are great. We've got 20 different classes that we're rolling out, of which those are 2 of them.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah, we actually went to Gamehole Con, and Brian actually ran several beta tests with other designers, and people walked away really, really happy with the product.
Congratulations. Obviously, visually, Rebel Moon, breathtaking. And there's moments of sheer beauty. But, we can't go into any other word without playing favorites. Yeah. It's on Netflix. If you want to watch it, obviously, all the things that David is alluding to have covered. Other places are really curious. But I'm very excited for enjoying Heroes, the rest of the history and future of the product. It looks like we have love for a lot of things. Unfortunately, segue. When you initially reached out to me, you took umbrage with a video I did earlier this year. And that is the reason why you wanted to talk to me today to get your take on that. So is that comfortable talking about now?
Sure, absolutely. And Mike, I love your videos. That's why I found you.
Oh, thanks, man. That means a lot. So there was this article from EN World, and it was pretty in-depth. It covered a lot of things, the Bitcoin gap, AI thing, a lot of issues that were claiming were happening, evil genius. When I covered it, I tried to be neutral because I'm a fan, and whenever I read anything like this, it's like, I don't know. Make up your own mind. So give us your side of this. Now that you have a chance, now that the dust has settled, let's take this apart because it's not very flattering, and I believe you deserve a chance to give your side, which is why we agreed.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, like I don't want to rehash the past because the past is the past. But what I will say is that there's always 2 sides to every story. And I sort of wish that they would have sort of fact checked some of this data, or given us an opportunity to sort of quote and be involved in the article. I had a 25-minute interview that none of it got into the article. The staff that is with me now, that stayed with me, they all asked to be interviewed and didn't get in the article either. But what I will tell you is yeah, we had some tough times, and it was not easy for everyone. But what I'm here to say right now is I'm really, really happy that our team of 9 people are still here from most of them from day one. We're really doing great work here. So we're still moving forward. And we're just really excited about the projects that we've been able to put in place so far. And since this article, we haven't lost a single person. A lot of the people who were mentioned in the article, some of them have been come back and continue to work with us, which, and apologize for their depiction in this article. And that's what I love, right? I love when people come back and they're like, hey, listen, we actually do like working with you. Can we still work with you? And we're like, yeah, absolutely. Like I don't hold any grudges.
Oh, good.
And the other part about it is man, how amazing our community's been about really rallying around us and really making sure that the product kind of continues forward. We have a vibrant and active Discord community right now. We actually have one of the largest organized play programs. We have 110 volunteers. We've actually done our 500th game of our organized play program, which is really cool. And and our organizers, they don't get paid for it, so they're just doing this on their own free time, which is amazing. that they're all willing to do that. And I'm super excited, but we actually have our own podcast. So 4 of our fans have actually created a podcast called Redemption HQ. Every week they chat about everyday heroes and a bunch of other stuff because they like to chat and they're funny. So if you want to check it out. But it's really cool to see people really digging our game and loving it. And that's really what it's all about, right? It's all about creating a game that people enjoy playing.
I would hope so. Sometimes I think the rumor mongering is more important to the industry than the actual mechanic.
Yeah. Then that's what I found out, right?
Of somebody pooping on somebody else and actually talking about the hobby, which is unfortunate. And you definitely got beat around the chest by several YouTubers who, without even doing any research, just jumped on the whole, oh, he's woke, blah, 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 bandwagon, which, as somebody who's been kicked out of the OFR, I can say this was very unfair. I believe you deserve a fair chance, but then, I'm biased because I like the stuff you made.
Well, Mike, what I found out was there are a couple different camps, right? There were camps of people who, were curious about the article and asked me, and I appreciated those people. And then there were people who were curious about the article, but they were like, listen, I've got a professional relationship with them. I'm going to support them because it doesn't matter one way or the other, so long as they're professional. And then there were third people who sort of like really believed the article and refused to engage with us. And a lot of those people I didn't know. A lot of those people never played our game and stuff like that. But one thing that I learned from this whole experience was how different this industry is, because it is thank you, Scrump Knuckle. Love you too. One thing I really learned about this is that this is a creative industry, and we have a lot of people who are very, very, right-brained are the creative
passionate
people?
About their story.
Passionate and interesting and stuff like that. And so that passion that was channeled against me is also the passion that I love about this industry. Mm-hmm. And one thing I quickly realized was that even though I created a game, it's not my game anymore. It's everybody's game.
That's the way it should be.
And Siegfried Trent, Goober Ramsley, Brian CP Steele, Alwyn Rowan Nelson, Eric Nelson, Haley Bryant, Paul Tim. That's my team right now. Those guys have as much ownership, if not more, in my product than I do, because they're the ones that brought this product to life.
Cool.
And I would even say that even my fans, who every single day are creating homebrews based on my game, and they're doing really interesting storylines that are sometimes better than the storylines we produce, or our game masters who are literally wearing our t-shirts and walking into stores and like, I love everyday heroes, you should too. They own this business as much as I do. And absolutely, I have to, and what I've learned is I've got to respect that. And I've got to appreciate and be in awe of all these amazing people who are making my community great.
Yeah, that's what it should be. Try and be better than yesterday.
Yeah. So listen, was it a good time for me? No, it was very sad. And it's still, still sad, but the opportunity to learn from it was awesome. And my ability to grow from it was awesome. And it brought my team together, and we're more dedicated than ever to create great games. And that's awesome. So I can't complain.
Is that you learned from this year?
Yeah. I mean, it's to be humble and to really appreciate and really revere the people who are involved in making this game great, and not take that for granted.
Well, now that we've covered that, we can get back to the fun stuff. What is the future for everyday heroes? Like, the first question that comes to my mind is, since it's a shared universe, Kong, are you going to get the rest of the Muslim universe, or is that been revamped now universe plain tale?
Yeah, I mean, so we, the first 8 were all really based on the Everyday Heroes franchise, and we always knew we'd go beyond that. So we'd always talked about recreating Urban Arcana, which we call Everyday Arcana, which is going to be awesome. It's basically magic in the modern world. Yeah. And then we also wanted to go into sci-fi with this product, Intergalactic Heroes. And we decided that first we're going to go with Intergalactic Heroes and sci-fi. Mm-hmm. So what you could expect in 2025 is going to be a year of science fiction. Mm-hmm. And you're going to see us announcing cinematic adventures that tie into the sci-fi theme. And my hunch is a couple of them that we're going to announce you're going to love. I mean, L-O-V-E, love. And so that's really going to be our energy. We're actually going to be working on a couple of other modern day cinematic adventures. We have one we're negotiating right now that's going to be exciting to announce. But the majority of our energy is going to be supporting Intergalactic Heroes and creating cinematic adventures that will support that particular system.
Cool. Can you give us any hints?
Oh man, if I do, then I'll lose the deal. All right. Cool. I kind of feel like so. Here's the thing, which is, I feel like there's 2 different types of science fiction in the world. There's science fantasy, which is like, oh, thanks, man. Thanks, John C. There's science fantasy like Star Wars, and there's a bunch of stuff that falls into that. And then there's science fiction like Star Trek, which is a little different take. Brian really feels like Intergalactic Heroes can support both styles. So what we're going to be announcing is 2 sci-fi licenses. One that's going to be more on the fantasy side, and then one that's going to be more on the science fiction side, to really sort of express the breadth of the actual product itself.
Cool. That's exciting. Love the fact that you've been smiling and jovial.
Well, the thing about it is like, so I'm a man of a certain age. If you take a look at the list of CAs here, you can see how old I am. Like Highlander and Rambo, you can see how I grew up. So you could probably only imagine the ones I'm going after. Do you have any guesses, Mike?
I mean, I know those things like based on what you've already done. No, I don't have any. I'd have to go through the list of 88 action to see what ideas is hungry for version.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough.
Can't do Blade Runner because that's Free League.
Free League did a phenomenal job. There's a
couple others out there.
There's no way to
obviously, I'm always looking for the next superhero role-playing game.
Okay, yeah. Well,
masterminds and champions.
So there are. So you and I are like brothers, then, because that's all the stuff I played when I was a kid. So there are rumors that we will be announcing a relationship with Owen Casey Stevens to be doing D20 Modern Spectaculars. Which was the superhero book that D20 Modern was supposed to release, paid Owen to do, and they never released the game.
Awesome. Very exciting.
Yeah, and Spectaculars is great because I don't know who your favorite superhero is. Mine is Daredevil. Mm-hmm. And so I love sort of the street level superhero stuff. Yeah. And Spectaculars is very much in that vein.
Yeah. I love all, but
are you Marvel or DC?
For live action Marvel, for animated DC.
Okay.
For favorite comic book run? Marvel.
Yeah. I'm a Frank Miller Daredevil guy.
Yeah, Frank Miller's Daredevil run. And that, which of course led to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. which nobody remembers was a one-shot show.
Yeah, so prior to this company, I actually started another company called nextplanetover.com with Milton Greep. Do you know who Milton Greep is? He now owns IVC2.
Yeah. Okay.
And he and I created an e-commerce store for comic books called Next Planet Over, and I got to meet Frank Miller, I got to meet Neil Gaiman, I got to meet Stan Lee, and it was really an amazing. Owning a comic book store is just amazing. It was just an amazing opportunity.
Well, meeting Stan, I went to a dog game.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. A couple years ago. Before he passed. Yeah. Bless his soul. He was a great guy. Cool. Congratulations on the success for the game. And I guess you have some Kickstarters coming in that I'll be able to shill. What's the one regret? other than the stuff we already talked about, What's the one thing about the system you do over, I guess? Now that it's done, you've had a couple of years.
Oh, dude, all of the above. Like, I think there's opportunity to do everything over. I would.
Yeah, me too. I'm constantly rewriting my stuff.
Yeah. I mean, so the funny thing about it is I'd probably redo 80% of it. Like lessons learned, right? Hindsight's 2020. Here's what I'm so blessed about, and like what I'm so grateful for, and why I haven't packed it up, right? Is because the system is good. Like the actual product that we sell is actually good. And I just got finished doing 3 days of GMing at Big Bad Con, which is here in San Francisco, California. And I GM'd for a packed house. Yeah, totally sold out. And everyone had an amazing time. And like my perspective is, so long as the product is good and people are willing to try it, there's nothing that can stop us from achieving our goal, which is creating a really, really good alternative for modern role-playing games.
Yeah, definitely need that.
Yeah, I think so.
Both of us love D20 Modern. When I saw you were announcing this, I was like, yes. I love D20 Modern. It's better than 4E.
It really was.
Yeah, they dropped the ball on that.
But what's so funny though is like people still play D20 Modern, and when I read the book, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. They really didn't even have cell phones back when D20 Modern was written.
You can dial up on your dial tone.
That's right. Here's how to use a phone booth.
Awesome. Any bundles coming up? Like Humble Bumble or something like that? People who haven't had a chance. I think you just did one recently.
Yeah, we did one about this time last year that went really well. And it was interesting because we got a lot of pushback, like, hey, we paid full price. Now people are buying the PDF for like, a discounted price. But then when we explained to everybody that like, all this does is expand the universe of people who are playing our game. And there's a lot of people, for example, in our Discord channel that bought it from the Humble Bundle. Now they're big time players, and like that just expands the opportunity. So as soon as we explained it that way, everyone was super happy with it. And so yeah, I mean, I think there's gonna be more opportunities like that. Like I would love to get a book into everyone's hands. We actually ran a program last year, which I was really excited about. So first of all, at Gen Con, all the VIGs got a cinematic adventure. So that was kind of fun to throw a CA in everyone's book and packages. But we ran an adventure that if you were a local convention and you wanted us to do some giveaways, we would give you $250 worth of books that you could raffle off or give away or whatever you wanted to do in exchange for a $250 sponsorship. And we had 54 conventions take us up on that.
Cool. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. And they were super happy. They're like, thank you very much. Like, we love Evil Genius that they did this. And I think it went over really well. So, any chance we can give it away, give our books away or something along those lines and get people exposed to it, we think the better.
Cool. Is there anything you think everyday heroes can't cover? Is there like one genre my game will not with that?
Fantasy, yeah. So we listen. Like I'm a huge D&D player. Like I said, been since 9 years old.
Yeah.
Not only that, but I'm a massive Pathfinder player. I love Pathfinder, and I've been playing that for the better part of a decade. And so I just did not feel like we could create a product that could compete with fantasy.
Yeah.
Nor did we want to. So we very much stayed away from that. And honestly, we wouldn't have gotten into sci-fi, but for the fact that, we had this project with Netflix, because I actually feel there's a lot more story to be told in the modern world, right? Like you've got the pirate days, you've got near future, you've got noir, you've got the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s.
Totally agree. Probably why Super is my favorite.
Yeah, there's so much room, and so we could have stuck around in the modern genre for quite some time if we not started to explore this opportunity for sci-fi.
Yeah. Well, you're just very amazingly lucky that you were able to get all these things that spin off of, You could cover all the movies.
Yeah, and and that was sort of the vision originally. The vision was like I'm a huge movie buff too, if you couldn't imagine. I go to a movie once a week. And the whole theory behind it was I was sitting in these movies, like I just got finished watching The Killer's Game. Did you ever watch that?
Yeah.
I liked it.
With Batista?
Batista.
Yeah.
And I walked out of that meeting going, that could be a cinematic adventure easily.
Yeah, definitely.
Or Bullet Train or whatever, like you name it, right? And so The Night Agent. So like I wish I could make a cinematic adventure on every single one of these really cool TV shows that have a really, really fun background and backdrop. But unfortunately, licensing does take a while. It's not easy to do. But I'm actually working with a couple movie studios to create a relationship like that. And that's where it's going to get really fun.
Yeah, I think so. It's more and more people are options besides the certain 10-pound role-playing. People want to explore more modern. At least I hope so.
Yeah, and one thing I really loved about D20 Modern was the ecosystem that it created. So, back then when the OGL first came out, as you know, companies like Green Ronin and Mongoose Publishing really sort of built their business off of supporting D&D. And some point in time, I would love people to build their business off supporting my platform, our product, Everyday Heroes. So we're going to be pretty soon announcing a publishing tool which will allow anyone to publish on our system.
Oh, cool. So an open source.
Yeah, exactly. And we already have about a dozen companies that are already developing on our system. Luke Gygax is actually producing a game called Strange and Grim, which I'm really excited about. Dreamslayer Studios is doing one called Whispers of Time. And so what I'm just trying to do is figure out how can I get all that out there so that as I go and explore stuff like science fiction and urban arcana, they can help fill out this modern day world with some really great ideas that even I wouldn't have even thought of.
Cool. So any more questions for Jay? All three of you. What is your wackiest tabletop role-playing game story? I've got mine. I've heard others that are wacky and amazing. What's your wackiest tabletop role-playing game story?
Oh my goodness! Like a story, a bad story, a good story.
Yeah, but just like the one that you, the most ridiculous, funniest.
Gosh, there's been so many. So as I told you, I'm a huge Pathfinder player, and I remember two different. It's one story. I had this elven archer named Eladriel, and this guy was awesome. Like he was like a sniper. So like. And he had all the feats so that like he could ignore cover, he can get a shot off as a surprise round. I think that if he did like a power attack, he was a fighter. So if he did a power attack, he can get like a +10 to his damage. So each arrow was doing like 30 points of damage, right? And I loved this character. I mean, Mike, I loved this character. I would have married it if I could. And I brought him to Gen Con and I ran him in a tournament, and I didn't realize that this event that we were running was one that was notorious for killing off characters. And so, but I was thinking, there's no way they're going to kill Eladriel, right? Like he hides in the bushes and shoots people, right? So lo and behold, we're playing the game. It's the first battle, and this demon materializes behind him because he's always in the back, right? Because he shoots raves. And innervates him.
Eek.
And innervates him to like a -10 constitution and kills him. I'm talking about, how like games at Gen Con last like 4 hours? Like this one lasted like 15 minutes for me. And I was like so sad. And it was like, hey, well, if you wait around, we'll resurrect you or whatever. I'm like, I can't sit here for 3 hours and 45 minutes just being sad about Eladriel. So that's probably my saddest moment.
Well, thanks for sharing, man. I'm sure Eladriel will live again.
Yeah, okay. I think ultimately I'll recreate him at first level and work him back up.
You can always show up as an NPC in the space game. Space cells.
Well, that's where Starfinder comes in.
So, intergalactic heroes are just might be an NPC that's a nod to your.
Yeah, he'll be coming from a different dimension. That he'll have
Exactly.
brown hair rather than yellow hair or something.
I've got recurring characters in all my games, so
I love it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for reaching out to me and talking to me. I'm unbelievably flattered that you chose me and you appreciate my content. If you ever want to come on and talk again about anything else, please let me know. I appreciate you, every one of you, joined us today to talk to Mr. Scott about Everyday Heroes. And let's hope the future is going to be bright. I'm going to let him go because the Nick Echo is annoying everybody, I'm sure. So thank you to each one of you. Links down below. Have a great day. And thank you again for reaching out to me, Mr. Scott. Tell that you both in the fight,